In this edition of RPP News, a serial killer's bid for freedom, shocking gambling statistics, and the Drift Festival is back. Hello, I'm Catie Sharp. Welcome to the latest edition of RPP News, bringing you stories from across Frankston and the Mornington Peninsula. Frankston residents have been shaken by reports that serial killer Paul Denyer, who murdered 3 Frankston women in 1993, is seeking a bid for parole. Denyer was sentenced to life in prison without parole, but the term was later reduced to a non-parole period of 30 years on appeal. His victims' families have been told that no date has been set for a parole board hearing as yet. The 3 women Denyer confessed to murdering are 18-year-old Elizabeth Stevens, 22-year-old Deborah Freem, and 17-year-old Natalie Russell. Denyer, who was then aged 20, was arrested one day after killing his last victim. The victims' families have been campaigning tirelessly to keep Denyer locked away, and a petition supporting this, set up by a family friend of Elizabeth Stevens, has reached 48,000 signatures. A motorcyclist has died in hospital following a collision in Clyde North on Tuesday. Emergency services were called to the intersection of Berwick Cranbourne Road and Hammersley Drive, following reports a motorcycle had collided with a Nissan SUV at around 5:45 a.m. The rider, a 32-year-old Cranbourne man, sustained life-threatening injuries and was taken to hospital where he later died. The driver, a 36-year-old Cranbourne East woman, was not injured. This brings the road toll for 2023 to a shocking 90 lives lost, an increase of some 25% for the same time last year. Gambling losses on the peninsula have climbed to record heights. Briars Ward Councillor Despy O'Connor has been briefed by the Peninsula's Community Consultative Committee on Gambling and has released figures that paint an alarming picture.
In 2021-2022 financial year, the losses through machines on the Mornington Peninsula were $67.4 million. This is the equivalent of $499 for each and every adult in this shire over 1 year. And that's compared to the average loss across Victoria being $430. This is almost $185,000 per day through our machines, or through these machines, that is lost in our shire.
Nationally, Australia is ranked the world's biggest gambling loser per capita, with over $25 billion lost by Australians in 2021. The peninsula is gearing up for this year's Drift Festival, which launches on the 21st of this month. Drift will bring the Mornington Peninsula's spaces to life with art of all kinds, including music, visual arts, film, installations, literature, and local food and wine, celebrating the best the region has to offer. Festival Director Steve Harris told Pete Smedley on RPPFM's Breakfast Scoop that this year's festival will feature 100 events over 10 days, many of which will be based at the Rosebud Foreshore.
This time we've adopted a really different approach in that we're building a large-scale pop-up festival hub at the Rosebud Foreshore, which is going to house a number of shows across 4 venues, including the Rosebud Soundshell, Memorial Hall, the Shoreline Big Top and the Drift Artist Bar, which is all pretty exciting. We've got some fairly incredible programming on offer at the hub, including some comedy, cabaret, live music and family-friendly entertainment. And we've programmed it so that audiences can come early, they can enjoy a drink and some free live music each night in the Artist Bar, ahead of going to see the shows at Shoreline Big Top or Rosebud Memorial Hall.
Local winemakers are asking their neighbours to hold off on burning off until the end of April. While the weather has been cooling down, the CFA has declared that the fire restrictions will remain in place until April the 24th on the peninsula. This allows time for our vignerons to harvest their crops. Wine grapes are highly susceptible to smoke taint as they ripen, so peninsula dwellers customarily save their bonfires until May. And the school holidays come alive at the Frankston Arts Centre this week with a jaunty new adventure from the DIY masters of puppetry and theatrical wizardry, Bunk Puppets. In Bunkosaurus, 2 clowns fall into a world of puppetry and silent comedy. The show is a mashup of genres, blending imagery, sounds and narrative forms from clowning, puppetry and DIY science fiction. Tickets for Bunkosaurus are selling fast, so hop onto the FAC website to book yours. We now cross to David Robertson with the Bendigo Bank monthly market update.
A welcome pause in the RBA tightening cycle as expected, but where to now for rates, economic growth and asset values? Our latest forecasts for domestic and global markets. As forecast in our March update, the RBA sensibly paused their sequence of rate hikes at 3.6% on Tuesday, but maintained their tightening bias, warning of the possibility of some further tightening of monetary policy ahead. This message left the door open for another hike to 3.85% in May, largely dependent on the quarterly inflation data to be released on April 26. But it's a very different tone to 2 months ago, when they indicated that further increases will be needed in the months ahead. And this diluted statement makes sense in lieu of the latest monthly CPI data. As the chart shows, consumer prices peaked in December at 8.4% and are now below 7%. So, assuming the quarterly data follows a similar path, the RBA can pause rate hikes for some time and monitor this trend. An upside surprise in the quarterly numbers would bring another rate rise back in play. But irrespective, it's now important to keep in mind how long it will take for core inflation to return to the 2 to 3% target, probably a year and a half away. So talk of RBA rate cuts remains premature, in line with an expected softish landing, with rates remaining around this level. In contrast, the US economy remains very likely to enter recession later this year. So no surprises that US markets are now factoring in a lower peak in rates and cuts through year end. So US rates appear to have peaked at around 5%, and economic data for manufacturing, housing, and the latest fall in job openings supports this view. US CPI, thankfully, is moderating, which is being reflected in bond markets, but not yet in stock markets. From here, while the US, UK, and many European economies are headed for recession, we still expect Australian GDP growth of around 1% this year. Not much, but still positive in real terms. However, unemployment is likely to edge higher as lower consumer demand weighs on business conditions. While RBA rates are near their likely peak, they impact the economy with a lag, so property values, despite a slight uptick in March, are likely to decline another 3 to 6%, depending on the location. This, together with inflationary pressures, will flow through to household spending, although the offsetting factor for local businesses remains the positive consequences of China's reopening and the related rebound in international tourism, student numbers, and demand for our exports. And finally, the Aussie dollar is back around 68 cents, even after the RBA pause in rate hikes. And given our forecasts of outperformance of our economy, albeit against a low benchmark of hard landings elsewhere, we retain our expectation of 70 cents by July and closer to 74 cents by year end. And that's the market update from Bendigo Bank.
And after the break, we go to Bianca with the weather update.
Everyone knows Australia has 4 big banks, but the 5th biggest retail bank is snapping at their heels. It's a bank that's been around for over 160 years, can be found in over 500 locations nationwide, looks after over 1.8 million customers, and is regularly voted one of the most trusted brands out of all the thousands of brands in Australia. Who is this fantastic number 5? Yep, it's Bendigo Bank. The better big bank.
Established in 1988, Progress Signs has been servicing the local community for 30 years. Located on the Mornington Peninsula, they are the #1 destination for all your signage needs, specialising in a variety of signage from vehicles to shop fronts, occasional and corporate events, short-term, long-term, and everything in between. If it's signs you need, be it large or small, Progress Signs is the place to call. Available 24/7 at progress-signs.com.au or call the team on 5975 9188. Thinking signs? Think Progress Signs, a station sponsor.
Here at Bridgestone Select, it's our job to keep you moving with the right advice,
a great range of products
and service you can count on.
So when it comes to tyres,
when it comes to auto care,
come to Bridgestone Select for service that moves you.
Bridgestone Select.
Okay, now Eliza Mead's best on ground today, Matty LaFontaine from ICW. Congratulations, mate. One of the fantastic meat trays from Kevin, the team at Eliza Mead's. Interesting game today. It was pretty close most of the day, but then you guys kicked away, and you in particular in the last quarter.
Yeah, they took it up to us. We knew that they were going to be good. They've had a lot of ins, so we didn't really know too much on, I guess, how they were going to play, but we trusted our game plan. It's starting to really come together really well, and in the end it worked, so it was good.
We saw you guys against Lane Warren in the first game of the season, and did it look like you skipped a beat after last year's grand final victory, and 2 games in, you're looking like the team to beat.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've kept a pretty similar group, and we've got a lot of young guys that have come in, and they're playing their role really well, so we trust what we're doing. The process is working really well for us at the moment, so it's just about building from now.
Well, mate, congratulations again on a great game, and congratulations to the team, and of course YCW winning the Topun Shield today.
Thank you
well
very
done.
much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
mate.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We now cross to Bianca for the coming week's weather report.
Hello, I'm Bianca and welcome to this week's RPP weather update. Well, Easter is over, but we are still in the middle of school holidays. So let's dive into this week's forecast to see what the weather will be like for the last week of holidays. Sunday, the 16th of April should bring us a mostly wet day. We should reach a low of 10 and a high of 17. Monday should see the rain clearing with a low of 9 and a top of 18. Tuesday will be much the same with the possibility of showers over the peninsula. We are expecting a top of 21 and a low of 11. Wednesday sees this trend continue with a low of 11 and a high of 16. Thursday sees even more rain over the peninsula with a high of 17 and a low of 9. Friday sees the rain backing off with bringing us mostly an overcast day with a top of 18 and a low of 9. And finally, Saturday should see the sun popping through the clouds with a high of 18 and a low of 9. Well, that's all for this week. Try to stay dry and I will see you next week.
And finally to our surf guru Muzz for the surf report.
Hey, it's Muzz here, back with this week's Peninsula Surf Report after a fairly average Easter. I know we did have some swell, but it was onshore and pretty average. And Bells, they did run it, but again, it was in way below par conditions. This next week in front of us looks way better. So starting tomorrow, Friday, looks like we'll get a push in the swell, and the wind should be north, maybe around to the northeast. So there should be beach breaks. Might be a bit solid on it with the sets, but it'll be pretty slow. And there should be plenty of waves in between on the tides, and then there might even smallish waves inside Western Port and at Flinders during the rest of the day. That'll be the same pretty much on Saturday, if not the swell will back off a little bit, but in the afternoon it will start to tend around to the west-northwest as the next front comes in, and come Sunday we should get a big jump in the swell, and the wind should stay in that northwest to west quarter through Sunday, Monday into Tuesday. Now Tuesday the swell will pick up a bit further, but the wind will go a bit more around to the west-southwest, so and that'll continue through to next week. So by the looks of it, from Friday through to Thursday next week, we should have a decent run of waves, decent run of wind conditions, and a good way to finish with the school holidays out with some surf. So hopefully get in the water, and I will see you next week.
And that's all from our team here at RPP News, serving the community with stories that matter to you. Keep watching and do tell your friends. Bringing you the news from coast to coast across Frankston and the Mornington Peninsula, I'm Catie Sharp. See you for the next edition.